Yo, this is KaeDee,
And this is David.
and we are the K&D Exchange, where we exchange music, and as a result, we exchange ideas, bridging the gap between old and new, with all original music produced by. Enjoy. What up, what up, what up? We're back, the K&D Exchange, after our long hiatus. How many episodes did we do? We've only done one after the hiatus. 2.
Yeah, this is our third, dude.
Fucking hell, man. Anyways, we are on exchange number 30. Let's go through the format. I almost forgot to do that. So basically, for someone who's... for you guys that have been, following us, keeping up to date with us, we thank you very much. Blessings to you. For those who are new and are just jumping in because you recognize the Audioslave name in the title and you're like, I want to see what these two guys have to say about it. What we do is every week we exchange an album for the other person to listen to, and it's usually an album that one of us is familiar with, the other one has never heard before. We try and keep it that way. So then we come in from 2 completely different perspectives and discuss the same project. And then the following week, we just swap. So if I gave David an album this week, next week he'll give me an album to listen to, etc., etc., etc. So without further ado, exchange number 30 this week. I mean, I've already said it, but David, what album did you give me to listen to?
I gave you Audioslave's first album entitled Audioslave, self-titled. It was released 18th of November 2002, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, I've got 17th of November written down. It's not a good start, David. It's not a good start.
Hey, I am on the knowledge base that is Wikipedia at the moment. The thing is, I remember this specifically coming out in 2002 only because I was at university and I'd started in that September, and it was my first year, and I was just getting into Rage Against the Machine. I was also just getting over the fact that they'd broken up at the time, that basically, a couple of years before I was getting into them. And then when Audioslave came out, I was like, oh my goodness, great. It's like, so I can sort of go along with the musicians on their next journey. And my goodness me, I was mightily blown away by some of the tracks on this album.
Yes, you really like this shit, don't you?
I do, man. It's
yeah, okay.
I do, and I'm judging by your your comment there that you're going to be like, guitars, there's no rapping. Oh my gosh, we've actually got a person that can actually sing. None of this nonsense that we've been reviewing. Like, we got somebody that can sing, dude, and possibly one of the greatest rock vocalists of all time in Chris Cornell. But yeah, this is going to be a combative episode. I can feel it. I've had like little bits of sleep over the weekend. I'm ready to fight, man. Let's throw.
Same. I've been the same way, and most of it's because of having to listen to this shit. No, I'm just okay. So,
oh no.
So, I'm gonna be honest straight off the bat.
Go on.
I did find this kind of hard to get through.
Yeah, sure.
Personally, I just don't. Thing is, it's not like what was that other album, the Skin Dread one, or maybe some other ones where it's like I just don't like it.
You're a little bit more accessible than that.
Yeah, it's just that, like, some songs, I'm like, I know that they're good, but there's this barrier which is stopping me from being in it and fully enjoying it, and like not wanting to come back to it. You know what I mean? Because it's like almost it'll get halfway through a song and I'll think, yeah, all the elements that are in place are cool. It sounds sonically nice and everything. Vocalist isn't bad by any stretch. So you won't hear me like downplay his singing or anything like that, because he has a great voice. But it'll get to like halfway through a song and I'll be like, okay, when's the next song going to come up? You know, when's the next one going to come up? Etc. 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 And you look like you've read the worst thing in your life.
I'm all right.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
Luckily, nobody can see the absolute rage. Anyway,
well, if these are going up on YouTube now, people are going to
what
see
this
the rage.
bit? Oh shoot! Then I would have tidied up this place. Like I got a clothes horse in the back.
That's what I was saying. I can, all the messes in the back and stuff.
Oh, stroof, man! Like you know what? I didn't even pick up on it. That's just sleep deprivation. But anyway,
yours looks fine, so don't worry about that.
You know, the beauty of this podcast is you'll be able to sort of work through it song by song, like what the barriers are. Because I am convinced there is enough in this album to latch onto. Because there are some absolute bangers in this album, absolute bangers, and then there's also a hell of a lot of depth that I picked up, I guess, through the years. Like I've been listening to this now, 19 years nearly.
Right.
And there's a lot of depth, especially in one song in particular, which one day I just listened to it randomly and it just hit me right in the heart. And I was like, oh my goodness, how come I never saw it like this? And so I will hopefully share that with you and that. But let's get into it then, man. Like, because this one.
But the thing is, the thing is, it's not even just that it's like, oh, it's not hip hop. I know you're joking or whatever. But
I am.
I did actually think about that because I just thought it's maybe this sound's not for me. Maybe just outside of the genre that I'm used to, I can appreciate it, but maybe not get into it. Maybe that's okay. But the thing is, like Rage Against the Machine, I really got into that.
Exactly, yeah.
07, I really got into that one. You gave me the Robert Glasper one. I would have been. I knew going into that I was going to be into that.
Yeah. Beautiful album, though.
Yeah, but I just found like my attention kind of waning a lot.
Yeah, sure.
And the thing is like when it started, the thing is I hate the intro now, just because I've listened to it so many times. Because I started listening to like this album listening experience was like a lot of stop starts, and because I would get like 3 songs in and I'd be like, I'm going to take a break from this. I'd be like, another day, okay, I need to listen to this. All right, start again from the beginning. Hear that same in both ears or whatever. Okay, all right, whatever. 4 or 5 songs in. Okay, I'm doing something else.
How he makes that sound as well is pretty epic. It's just lots of delays.
Yeah, it's. Oh, is that what it is?
So he uses a lot of delay, and I think he hits the the strings with like a pencil. He like sort of like he hits it, and then
it has got a very nice sound to it.
Yeah, it's like little bits of delay. It's like a slapback, sort of like really quick delay on like one sound. So it's like when he hits, and then he just keeps on hitting it, and that kind of gives it that kind of like that engine kind of flow. Like
that's
at the beginning, it sounds like an engine. Yeah,
it's cool. Like the drums are very full bodied. Like we were just talking about, the guitars are really
they're huge in this, especially the bass as well. The bass is obnoxious in places, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Like, how do you say the name of the first song?
Cochise.
Cochise. What's it mean?
I always thought it was a nickname to people. You'd call somebody, "Hey, Cochise," like, you know what I mean? Like almost like a friend sort of
sure
term of endearment. I think I've never even considered looking at it any more than that, because he's talking about he's talking about almost like friendship, or like, I'm not a leader, I'm not a martyr, and I won't preach to you and stuff like that, but go and save yourself and then take it out on me kind of thing. It's very much like a I'm here for you as an emotional bedrock almost. Sure. But yeah, so that's why I always associate Cochise with just like, I'm here, I'm your mate sort of thing. Anything you need, I've got your back.
Got you. Cool. But yeah, like this was a cool opening, like the big explosion kind of in the lead up, and then the music floods in. Cool. And then, like, the main vocalist as well, he's I like his voice as well. Well, what I mean by that is that I like the sound, the texture of his voice and everything. I think it all sounds really good. Whether it's for me personally, I don't know. So like my barometer for that would I guess it depends on the song, but like I wouldn't be like, oh man, I'd love to hear, what's this guy's name?
Chris Cornell.
I've heard of him. I don't know if through you or just in general, but yeah, I wouldn't be like, oh man, I really want to see a feature between this guy and Chris Cornell. Oh, I'd really want Chris Cornell on my, it's like, it's not the type of voice that I'm like, right, that sounds so good. I need more of that for me personally.
Yeah, fine.
Sounds good objectively, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not like rushing to hear if it's not, it doesn't like hit me in any deeper way. But yeah, so that opening, that was cool. I was like, okay, cool. This should be a good setup. But then I kind of found the next one a bit boring.
Oh, I just got to say one thing about KaeDee's, like the bit after the first chorus, the bit where the guitar's sort of wailing over the top of the bass, and the bass has got like the wah effect underneath it. Like, this is something that I didn't mention on the Rage Against the Machine one. So basically, like in rock, a lot of the aggression that you associate with rock is in the guitar itself. Now, if you've got like a 4-piece band, so one guitarist, one bassist, one drummer, one vocalist, the question is, when the guitar's off doing the solo, how do you maintain that aggression with just the bass? Right. Exhibit A right here after that first chorus, because it is just, it's just growling, and you can just hear the bass underneath, like, it's just amazing. And like, this is the thing, it's one of my favorite, this is why Timmy C, this is why I like him. He does a lot with a very little amount. Just one riff. How do you make it just seethe and pounce? And, it's just kind of this undertone of malevolent energy, and just like kind of, it's just amazing. It's just, anyway, sorry. So Show Me How to Live. Okay, go for it. Show Me How
to Live. I found it a bit, I didn't really pick much out from it. Like, instrumentally and everything sounds good.
Yep.
But fair, like, if I wasn't paying attention, I would have thought the first song was just continuing at parts.
Completely disagree, but yeah.
Like, I think there were probably times when I tuned out, and again, it may be because of like how new I am to this kind of music. That if I just kind of tuned back in when this song was playing, I would have been like, oh wait, shit, is this the next song? You know what I mean? Because all I would have heard is just guitars, drums, and him doing his whatever.
Because that's what's happening, KaeDee.
I know that, exactly. I know. That's what I mean. But it's like if you heard like, oh no, you're gonna hate this comparison. I'm not comparing the two as artists.
Am I going to throw my laptop?
I'm prepping you, right? That this is purely the most far away comparison. Purely thinking the most abstract sense of just in sense of listening to an album and tuning in from a background perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So if you I can't even say it.
Just pull the plaster off, man. Like, let's get to it.
So let's say you were listening to an album by someone like Future, right?
Yeah.
And you're new to that kind of that genre of music. You're new to that genre of music. You're listening to Future. You're not really paying attention. You tuned out after the first song. Second song comes on. It's just on in the background, and then you're like, oh shit, I need to be paying attention. And you listen, you're like, shit, is this the next song? Because it'll just be another trap beat.
Yeah.
Same elements, him doing his thing on top. That's what I mean for this. I'm not saying anything artistically about the two.
That's fair enough, dude. I'm breaking your balls, man.
Well, if everyone saw your face, they would know that that's a half lie. But yeah, but that's not a downplay on this. That's more of me not tuning in. But yeah, again, I don't know. It just, something wasn't pulling me in to this. It was just kind of, it's happening. It's not bad at all.
Yep.
Again, there's something's just not gripping me enough. I think, when we talked about the Eminem album, like, I know it's good. He's not slouching when he raps. He's doing his thing, and it's not like I'm listening to this like, wow, this is such trash. It's just something is not there. The final bit is not there it's like it's reaching out for me, and there's a little space where it can't fully reach me yet. His arm's not long enough.
Yeah.
That's how it feels for this. It feels all the elements are in place.
Yeah.
Something is just not pulling me in. I can go the rest of my life without listening to this album again. Well, from this point, me thinking ahead.
Yeah, sure.
And it wouldn't be like, for me, it would just be like, okay, fine. Unless I come back to it later and it just suddenly clicks. But at this point,
might do.
Yeah, it's weird though, because it's not at all a bad album. And I actually saw some other reviews for it, just in passing. And people talking about how much of an impact it had on them and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. And I was thinking, why am I? What is it that's just not clicking? Because I mean, it's got the same full body and everything that Rage Against the Machine had. Maybe
Definitely.
Not the same vocal style. Maybe not the same kind of grit in terms of its, or at least its forwardness and its themes. And Rage Against the Machine hit a different pocket, and there was something about the guitars and the sound and the mix that was just so appealing to me, and something about the vocals and stuff that was so appealing to me. So like it really, really hit for me, and I don't think it was as long as this album either.
Definitely not.
Yeah, so I think it really hit for me a bit more.
Yeah, Battle of Los Angeles is like 38 minutes, I think.
Right,
or like 40 minutes. Like it's just 12 short, sharp assaults on the senses, basically. Whereas this one is, what is the runtime for this bad boy?
It's like an hour.
Hour and 5 minutes. So it is, I completely hear that. Because in, I can't even think of the word anymore. That's really good. In reviewing and listening to this album and revisiting it, that's the word. Again, sure. I realized that for years there were only, I think, 5 songs that I've picked out of this album that I'm like absolute bangers, love them, and the rest I've kind of like I haven't revisited. Really? I haven't listened to since then. I don't think, like honestly, because they just didn't hit me. But like now. Right. With the benefit of hindsight, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like this, I think the album has really good high points for me, but not everything grabs. So like, I can completely understand your, like on Show Me How to Live, track number 2, I can totally see why you're saying what you're saying. Like it didn't grab me either. Like the first few times I listened to it, and then I latched onto literally 1 or 2 words, and then I all of a sudden love the song. And it's the way that he sings, you gave me a life, now show me how to live. It's the note that he hits when he sings you gave me. Like I don't know how anybody, I've heard people try and cover that, nobody can sing that, and I don't know what it is about that. Just he hits such a note that I'm like and so I'm in. I know what you mean. I'm fully into the song. I find the verse like quite boring personally. I think the solo is pretty uninspired. And then I really love the few seconds of it, because he does there's that weird thing with his voice as he's singing. He sings like Show Me How to Live, and then he does this weird kind of, it almost sounds like, like those Indian singers, and they have those kind of weird like half notes intonations. Yeah. But what he does, sounds like
his voice is kind of cut up right from the back of his throat here. Yeah.
Do you know what he does to get that?
What?
He flicks his Adam's apple to do that. I thought, hang on a minute, like how is he doing that? Oh, there must be some like studio interference. He does it live,
like an effect. I thought it was meant to sound like an effect, that he's
that's
just
all
messing with his vocal. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Innovator.
See, this already is starting to make me feel like, okay, I need to give this another chance. But then part of me is like, no, KaeDee, you've got your opinion, it's set. No, I'm joking. But,
I was going to say, like, oh boy.
But yeah, like, that one just didn't do it for me. Gasoline is cool. Not a big fan of the kind of singing style he incorporates on here. It's like, it's all right. It's like I don't know. It feels like something I should get. And I can't explain that. Because when he does start going into the screaming and it all comes in, it's all like, it brings the grip back. It brings the edge back. But I don't know if this is although Deftones was worse when we did Deftones, not worse as in like they were artistically worse. I mean, in terms of this, like, how we talk about certain elements of the songs were really good.
Yeah, definitely.
But then it's like, well, if I listen to the song, I'm taking the song as a whole. So then the parts that if they're big parts of the song that I don't like the verses, but I only like the chorus, and that's musically as well, not just vocally, then it knocks the replay value for me for the entire song, because I'm not just listening to the chorus on repeat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's fair enough, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess an upside to the kind of more simplistic nature of the music for hip hop in its structure is the fact that it's just like a 4-bar loop. When you get the verse or something like that. I know it varies and it switches up, but a lot of the time, when you want a beat, you do. It's like a 16 bars.
That's
not too much musical change, depending on the producer, and then the chorus switches it up a little bit or takes an element out or something, right? So you could have kind of, once the beat is there from the beginning, if you're in. Yeah, if the rapper doesn't do his or her part over it, it can be like, oh man, they wasted that beat. But if they're okay over it, you can kind of still enjoy the song, because you're like, yeah, this beat though.
At least you've got the beat, sort of thing.
And they're flowing over it, yeah. And the chorus is really catchy. The verses could be a bit better, but you can still take the song as a whole thing, right? I guess for genres like this, maybe it can be a little bit harder, because it feels like the music is kind of changing and it's constant. And maybe because of the live aspect of it, it's not just, I mean, it's not like it's continuously changing every single second, but
no,
a bit more dynamic, I guess. So if there's like big elements, like not just a 30-second section that I just don't like, it's like a whole verse. It's like a whole verse.
Yeah.
Even musically, I don't like.
It's problematic.
And the chorus comes in. Yeah, it's like, and then the chorus comes in. It's, that sounds so good, but now we're going back to the verse, which I didn't like, and it's like, okay, all right, chorus. But then chorus comes in and it's really good, but it's like you're a bit deflated, because you're like, it would have been better.
I do hear you. This used to be one of my favorites on the album, and then it slowly sort of faded into the background. I was very much coloured though by the first time I saw them before I heard of them. So they used to did a show on, like, is it the Live Show or the Tonight Show or something? And they were basically playing in New York on a it's like on a theater's roof, and they literally just got their amps and they're blasting out to the street. And that was the first time I saw them after hearing about them, and I was like, oh my goodness. And Gasoline was one of the songs, the first song I heard, but they did Like a Stone, Set It Off, Cochise as well, and maybe one or two others. But that was the first thing that I heard, and I was just like, just enamored with his voice. That is the best that his voice ever sounded with Audioslave, because anything after then, I don't know, it was really sad. But I think he had addiction, alcohol addiction. He always battled with that. And there may have been other things, but it was really weird, because live, I've watched like Audioslave live and stuff, not in person, but like on YouTube, and I found that his voice just couldn't go over the music.
Right.
And he would literally kill his voice. Like his voice is amazing, but the EQs were always crap. Like the guitars were mixed too high, and he was far too low.
Oh,
so and this is live as well. So it would sound, by the time that his vocals were over the guitars, he would be straining to a point where it's just uncomfortable. But yeah, I do think there were like there were alcohol issues, definitely. Drugs. Right. Probably, you know what I mean? And he alludes to it in this album as well. Like I find the themes in this album, like the lyrics are they're very layered, and he's a bit of a poet as well. But yeah, man, like I don't know if you picked up, like there is an element of fire throughout, the album. He talks about it like Last Remaining Light, for goodness sake, Gasoline as well. Show Me How to Live. Like there are all these elements of like fire and light and stuff like that throughout this album. So it's just like, what do you think
with the cover?
Exactly.
I never really understood what that was either.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto. I've just seen it and I'm like, I think it's cool, but
yeah, it's just like
I always ignored it, but then there are lots and lots of references to fire, like Shadow on the Sun as well. Doesn't get more fire than that. So
yeah,
you know what I mean.
But yeah, so there's that one. No, that's cool, man. What You Are. I'm not really a fan of this kind of downbeat sort of sound.
It's a strange placement on the album.
Yeah.
Only because the first 3 songs are just bangers. Like, as in
they're quite
the music. They're really explosive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you sort of water it down with this song. It's not bad. It's just one that even this time round, I got maybe halfway through and I was like, nah, I'm not getting nothing from it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's of its era as well. It sounds a little bit dated to me. I don't know what it's reminding me of exactly. It's like, but I just remember it's just early 2000s-ish, and I think that's why it's reminding me of something from kind of childhood.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I'm listening to it now, and it's just
a refresh, and I'm pretty sure, yeah. I'm not sure what it's like, when you watch TV shows from that era.
Yeah, and, The Wire.
Yeah, the soundtrack is always like these kind of rock songs, and you can tell that it's from that era.
Yeah, carbon dated.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas either now they've got the like newer kind of material, or it's like original scores or whatever. There's some like weird musical stuff that happens around like I think the 2:30 mark. So it's like it kind of breaks down, and there's just like the guitars just over this weird kind of
typical Tom Morello wah
stuff.
Yeah. And this is the thing as well. Like this album, like upon listening to it, and having been such a fan of Tom Morello for years, like it's definitely lost its mystique. Because even going back to Rage Against the Machine, I'm like, all right, okay, like Tom Morello was an innovator at that time, but I don't know. He's in a band with Be Real and Chuck D, and they're called the Prophets of Rage.
I've heard of him.
Yeah. And what they do is like their songs are very much in the same vein as they've always been, but like his effects and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
It's so now like one note. It's like, oh right, there's no sort of surprise anymore. I find anyway. I'm like, I can do, and this is the thing. Like I've sort of pierced the veil of mystery because I can do pretty much all of the effects that Tom Morello does. I can do most of them. And I know, through listening now, I'm like, I know how he does that. I know how he does that. I know how he does it. Like, there's no sort of mystery anymore. And it's such a shame because, he was an innovator, but now he's relying on that innovation and just not doing anything new. It's like, you've got to keep trying to push the envelope, especially because you were known as the effects guy,
Right. Yeah.
And the thing is as well, don't get me wrong, Tom Morello is a sick guitarist. Like he can play, like he can do rock and rock riffs all day long, chug away, not a problem. but when he like live and stuff, like he can do these like lovely like live jazzy guitar licks that he can. I mean, and some of the picking and the notes that he play. Oh my goodness, he's amazing. I'm not saying that he's not, but like the thing that his superpower, as it were, is it's so sort of like, you know, transparent, especially when I'm looking at this album again. I'm like, oh, you know, oh, Tom. But anyway,
yeah, fair enough.
I still think he's one of my favorite guitarists of all time. But no,
right, yeah,
no drama on that. But.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that one wasn't really
that one, meh,
kicking it. And to be fair, the next one wasn't either. Wasn't a fan of this one. Like a Stone.
I recommend you listen to it live, and okay. I recommend you think about it in the context of it being performed at somebody's funeral. Okay. It is one of the saddest songs. Like, honestly, this is the one that I came back to, and it just hit me emotionally. Like, you know, I have a mind where I always think about the worst things that can possibly happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I could imagine me, like, if I could sing, I would sing this at a loved one's funeral. Oh my goodness. Right. I get the sentiment. You know what I mean? Like, in your house, I long to be, room by room, patiently, I will wait for you there like a stone. I'll wait for you there alone. I'm like, oh my goodness. He's waiting to die, man. Like he's lost somebody and he's just waiting to see him again. Oh, but the thing is,
I didn't pick up on that.
The music I have a problem with, I think, because it's very 2000s-y. It's very kind of like by the numbers. I find it's very, it doesn't feel inspired, but the beauty of his lyrics are just, this is why he's a poet. Like,
right.
When you break it down and listen to it and you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize the depth of it. And I don't know why I came back years later, but just to listen to it, like something told me, listen to Like a Stone. And now I'm a massive advocate for that song.
I get you. Okay. Because that's something I was going to ask you about, like whether, because this is a common theme that comes up when we talk about some of these projects that are from this genre, is about seeing them live and it adding a different dimension to the enjoyment. And I was actually going to ask, like, is by this point in the conversation, I think it's clear that I this wasn't resonating with me too heavy.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, is this one of those things, you've said this to me before, that if I listen to it live, will I get it? Do you know what I mean? Like, is that something you think would happen?
Especially with the very first performance that they did on that New York City street.
Yeah.
And when he sings it, I think you will get it. Because it's just, because you need to understand that in a lot of these songs, like the music, for me anyway, the focus isn't so much the music, it's very much around Chris Cornell. And especially, I think in the sort of, I think this song, the music is quite bland. And I think it's this song in particular.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's quite bland, but only in the sense that you tune into his vocals, because they are top tier vocals, and also very, very understated. He's just singing, and I think it's
he's not doing anything too flashy or too kind of show offy. I can think of the word.
Oh man, here we go. Like, even in the beginning of the song, like, on a cobweb afternoon in a room full of emptiness, by a freeway I confess. So I wonder if he's talking about the crossroads or anything. Right. I was lost in the pages of a book full of death, reading how we'll die alone, and if we're good, we'll lay to rest anywhere we want to go. And then he's like, in your house I long to be, room by room, patiently. Like, it's very, very, it's steeped in this imagery. And it's very much, I always get like a deserty feel with this song. But
I get that.
It's also quite sort of, it is also quite like, almost, I can't really like word it, like, not monotonous, but it's very like on an even keel, I guess, the music.
Yeah, even keel. bit like humdrum, kind of just.
Yeah, it's a bit meh. But then the lyrics kick in, and I'm like, this guy he's got levels, man. Like, it's not complicated. It's not delivered in a complicated way, but the themes, you could genuinely, in loads of these songs, you could write an absolute thesis on some of the lyrics on it. Like, what could they mean? Because it's, he's a guy with depth anyway.
Okay, well, that adds a different dimension to that song. I guess for me, if I was listening to a MC over a beat that wasn't too crazy, I would probably think, all right, you need to bring it with the bars in order to make this work. And if they don't, it's like, okay, well, what was the point of that? Because sometimes it happens, MCs will pick a beat that's very spacious, very kind of just keeps moving, keeps going, because they want to have space, and they want to have a pocket to just go in and rap about something that they want to really get off. And if it depends on the mood of the beat, I guess with this kind of music, it can be similar. It's just for someone like me, I'm not tuned in to pick up the lyrics. I'm hearing his voice as a part of the whole song to begin with, and maybe I'm hearing a few words now. It's weird. Like, for me, you would think that you would just pick up lyrics no matter what you listen to.
Well, yeah, especially in the context of this show. Like,
yeah,
you'd think, like, it'd be like me listening to, I don't know, Nas's Illmatic, say, if I'd never listened to it before, and talking to you about the music and the feel,
the lyrics,
but not talking to you about what he's talking about. You know what I mean? About the lyrics.
That's what I was going to say, but because on a genre to genre, when you give me hip hop albums, it's different. I can tune into the lyrics very easily, right? And it feels a bit more in your face. And I don't know if that's because hip hop's more, the genre's based more on that. Like, there's more words, even just in general. There's more words, and it's like vocally, I personally would say more exciting, just on a base level, because of it's a bit quicker and it's a bit more upfront. It's almost like some of them are even just talking. So it's even at that level, it's just like, whereas you could step back and hear a singer just singing and really enjoy it without listening to what they're saying.
I see what you mean.
You go, that's what I mean by tuning into the lyrics.
Sure.
Where if I'm listening to an R&B album, sometimes I could just let it just run and not really tune in, because a lot of them are about, similar topics usually most of the time, about relationships, love, heartbreak, and all that sort of stuff. And then you get the couple of songs. Yeah, exactly. So you kind of don't even need to like hone in on that. And there's like maybe a handful of songs which have a bit more of a personal introspection or something like that. And then it's weird, but then that kind of singing, it would be different to another form of singing in another genre, which then is different to this one. So when I listen to like an album like this, his voice just becomes part of the noise or the mess,
the aesthetic,
and the aesthetic of the whole thing. And it's harder for me to kind of really tune in and listen to what he's saying. Whereas with a rapper, it's different. And again, it could be because of the music they're going over as well. It's different. It's a bit more controlled. It's a bit more lyric focused or vocal focused. I don't know. But yeah, that's interesting though. I never would have thought of Like a Stone being like that. But I'm glad that you said about the music being kind of bland-ish, because I felt the same way. I think that's what put me off. So, and coming off of what you are, not really been a fan of that downbeat sound already, and then going into this kind of had me like, yeah, I'm not really feeling this. But you've added a new perspective to it, which is cool. But then Set It Off has a bit more kind of grit behind it.
That's it. Yeah.
It kind of brings a bit more back.
Give me the riffs.
Yeah. It's got all that. It's cool. Again, coming back to the beginning of what we were saying, I have a trouble saying, oh yeah, I like this song, I mean, I could say, yeah, I like this song, but it feels a bit inauthentic because I probably would never listen to it again.
But in the context of this album, you like the song. Like, I listen.
Yeah. It's kind of like that.
I'm letting you off. Like, I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah, I know you are being uncharacteristically kind of calm about this. But...
I'm pretty calm. No,
you are pretty calm until it comes to certain topics.
I don't think I think that is a harsh assessment, sir. I'm kidding. Do you know what?
No, I mean, I'm the same way. I will go. In general, I'm pretty laid back until
something irks you.
Certain shit is said, and then it's all the reins are off at that point. But this song, yeah, it's cool. I like it in the context of the album.
Yeah, man, it's cool. Again, biblical imagery, where he straight off the bat, it's you know what I mean. He was standing on a rock, gathering the flock. You kind of think, desert, Moses, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, they're in the desert on. Are they in the desert cover?
I mean, it looks like it. Oh, maybe. Good point. It could be, or it's at least an arid, desolate sort of place, isn't it? And I do think that a lot of the music is sort of steeped in that, like, kind of sunshine, hot, arid conditions.
I was going to say, that the music does fit the cover quite a bit.
Yeah, it really does.
In my opinion. Yeah. So that's a plus.
Do you know what? I never picked up on that until just this second. Anyway, go on.
Just when you've been mentioning the desert, I was thinking, wait, yeah. It's got that kind of yellowish, hot feel to the cover. And then I just looked at it now and it's like, I mean, that desert looks much more normal. It doesn't, I don't know. Yeah, it definitely looks like a desert. Shadow on the Sun, though. All right, now this 2-song run is where it picked up for me. Shadow on the Sun and I Am the Highway.
Right.
I can't explain why.
What?
Well, maybe I can explain why.
Explain. You're on a podcast.
I'm glad I wrote it down. When I say I can't explain why, I'm not I mean in the deepest abstract level as to why these particular things that I explain grabbed me, right? And it could be because of how my experience was going through the album. Now, when I say that this 2-song run grabbed me, this again, in comparison to the rest of the album, it doesn't mean
at least commit to your words.
Doesn't mean this shit is my favorite shit of all time. It just means that in comparison. So I can see you trying to relax and get zen.
I'm looking at the green grass. I'm looking at the falling leaves. There's a squirrel.
Okay.
Yeah,
Don't kill the squirrel after what I've said, because I feel like I've heard Shadow on the Sun before.
Have you seen the movie Collateral with Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
Then it's in that. That's why you've heard it.
No wonder.
And it's one of the most pivotal scenes. Like, when I think of that movie, I think of this song and Tom Cruise or Vincent being in the back of and this song like playing. It's amazing.
That's no wonder. I've seen that film a few times. That makes so much sense. I was thinking, is this just a big single or something that came out? But cool. Okay. So yeah, Shadow on the Sun. It's kind of interesting. The mellow guitars are nice and the bass as well. And even when everything comes in, I like his vocal approach and the kind of the pocket.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not too overbearing or anything. I mean, this is a criticism that's consistent across the board here. It's kind of long. Some of these songs are quite long, and maybe it feels long. Okay, I was going to say maybe they feel long to me, but yeah, and this album as a whole is kind of long, and so some of these songs when they're happening, I'm listening to them, and then I'm like, shit, we're not even halfway through.
I know, and this is the halfway point, isn't it? I think there are 14 songs, aren't there?
Yeah, there are 14 songs. Yeah.
And that's the one drawback on this album, because I think it could have been, for me, I have a problem with the length of it as well, because you could have made it like short and sharp, much like Rage Against the Machine. But at the same time, I guess the musicians would argue, well, it's not Rage Against the Machine, it's Audioslave. This is what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is fair enough. You know, and if you know, and this is an era of time where everyone was just trying to fill out the 80 minutes on a CD.
Yeah,
it was kind of normal because you'd buy your CD and get your money's worth. So
hell yeah.
But I guess by today's standards, I mean, 14 songs doesn't sound long, but it's the time. It's when it goes over an hour. It's like
when they're 5 minutes long each, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what they mostly are. I think the shortest song is Code Cheese, if I'm not mistaken, and even that, like I've always lost interest in that song. Past the second verse, past the second chorus.
Yeah, that's what ended up happening a lot of the time, and I would kind of be hoping for a little switch up, which would happen, but then by that point, I'm just like,
well,
okay.
I think the only switch up, well, really, you've got to have the obligatory Tom Morello solo, and then it would go back to whatever. But then, like the first genuine switch up happens in this song, because you then think, because the first time I knew who Chris Cornell was, he was from Soundgarden. Never listened to Soundgarden. I think I'd heard one song called Black Hole Sun, and I didn't even like it. I thought it was crap, actually. And people are like, "Oh, it's amazing." I'm like, "All right, fine. Like, you do you." I think it's weak. But when I listened to him on this, I was like, "Oh wow, he can really sing." And then you get to the end of this, and I was like, "This guy can scream too. It's amazing." But anyway, sorry. Let's get into it.
No, cool, man. But yeah, so this one was kind of cool, if not for the length, but I liked the different musical direction. I Am the Highway. The melodies in this one were quite nice. It's got like some rainy day kind of vibes.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit dated in the same way that What You Are was, but not in the same, for lack of a better word, offensive way. But like this again hits a different pocket. So it's not too overbearing. It's got like his melodies and stuff. It reminds me of some other songs or bands or something that people used to listen to back in my school or something. I want to say like Oasis or something like that. Like,
I see what you mean. It's got that kind of because they played with the organ kind of sounds and stuff. Like,
oh right.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No. I want you to. If you explain it,
there's almost like this sort of it's almost orchestral, but it's done through guitars. Like, it's almost like this big sort of.
Yeah, it's very big, and this feels like it would be in a movie from the 2000s as well.
Totally.
During the sad montage, you know, when the couple
don't
know
like
whether they want to be
I hate
together
about
or not.
you, or
something like one of those kind of films. You know, that they don't know whether they want to be together or not, and this song will play during the montage. That's how I can imagine it. So, yeah. Overall, though, it's not fully. It didn't. Again, the length stopped it from fully holding my attention.
Agreed. I get to the 3.5 minute mark, and I'm like, yeah, I'm out. Like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, right, exactly. I wonder if these songs would have benefited from just being cut down.
You and I telling them, look, guys,
you and I as
executive producers. Don't get me wrong, like, it's brilliant.
We don't need 5 minutes of it.
Don't need 5 minutes of this stuff. Also, I can't let it go by. But in Shadow of the Sun, I think that the theme of the song, I used to think that it was about a breakup. However, I think it's a bit more sinister than that. Only in the sense of the lyrics, right? And like it took me years to pick up on this, right? But here we go. Let's go. I was once upon a time I was of the mind to lay your burden down and leave you where you stood, and you believed I could. You'd seen it all before. I could read your thoughts and tell you what you saw, and then never say a word. And then now that it's all gone over with and done, never to return. And I'm thinking, okay, I think that's a breakup, right? However, when he gets to the chorus and he says, I can tell you why people die alone. I can tell you why I'm the shadow on the sun. I'm like, is Chris Cornell talking to someone, or is somebody talking to Chris Cornell saying that they're the shadow on the sun?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And then he sings, I'm staring at the loss. I'm looking for the cause. And I was never really sure. Nothing but a hole to live without a soul and nothing to be learned. And that to me is like, are you talking to the devil? Or is he saying that he's the shadow on the sun?
Oh, I see. Right.
Because he says then it goes into, I can tell you why people go insane. I can show you how you can do the same. I can tell you why the end will never come. I can tell you I'm the shadow on the sun. I was like, oh my goodness. Is this a conversation? Anyway.
Right. So you think that those parts are someone's talking to him, or the devil, whoever is talking to him. It's not actually Chris. Right. That would give it a completely different kind of spin, wouldn't it?
Exactly. And this is the thing. What I love about it is it's so ambiguous. It's great. But it just to me, I was like, well, is it like, what is it? Because I've seen for years loads of people try and say, oh, it's about a breakup, or it's about this, or it's about that. And I'm like,
sure.
I haven't seen anyone with my take on it. But anyway, I just wanted to highlight that because, again, like, I think it's to do with his themes, his poetic nature, and the sense that he can hide in plain sight. You think that his tone and the way that he sings is like really nice and beautiful, and then you look at the bit deeper and you're like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And then the way he's shouting shadow on the sun at the end, I'm like, wow, dude, like that's almost hatred. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like more than just like performance, it's
sure.
It's a lot deeper than that. And so that's something that, I couldn't sleep tonight without having said that. So I had to say that. And then also with I Am the Highway, again, there's more depth, but it's like depth that I only picked up on this time of listening.
Sure.
You know what I mean? When he says pearls and swine bereft of me, who ever says that? Yeah, so like that's riches and the poor, and they all don't matter. Like they're bereft, like they're apart from me. I am other. And that's the first line. And you're like, okay. And then like I think this song is basically him saying that like I am a vehicle on which people travel, like used to travel, in the sense that I am the highway. Like, I am the musical highway. I am telling you what I think and all that, and you will come along with me for a duration, but this album, for example, and then you'll veer off and go your own direction. And I never picked up on this, 19 years ago, but now I'm looking at it and I'm like,
from a completely different lens.
This is genius.
That's cool. Like a stone, shadow on the sun, I Am the Highway. You're adding these different levels of depth, which I never really, or perspective, which I never really thought about.
But it's easy to miss, bro. This is years of thinking about it.
Right, yeah, exactly. So my failed attempts at listening to this front to back aren't really going to glean that that same thing.
You know what?
I was watching Friends while I was listening to this. Like I had to have something. I was reading the subtitles with my headphones on just to kind of give myself something to do so that I actually get through it, because I kept stopping and starting. I'll take it on a walk and I'll be like, nah, I want to listen to something else. I want to listen to something else each time, sit down, try and make notes. Oh man, I want to listen to something else. So I was like, okay, I need to do something that would just mindlessly occupy my mind while still letting the music come in.
Kneel at the altar of Friends.
Yeah, man. And now I'm not unfortunately, I'm really deep in the Friends kind of story now by accident. So I've seen it before, but now I'm like hooked again. So I'm like, okay, cool.
Do you know one thing?
Thank you, Audioslave, for that.
Oh my goodness, they're leading you down a dark. They're leading like rock. Really will lead people down the wrong path. They weren't lying. Do you know what annoys me about Friends? The thing that now grates me beyond measure. It's not the characters. They themselves, they're all right or whatever. Like, and some of it is very funny, and I'll give you that. Like, I'm not like berating you for liking Friends. Like what you like.
Yeah.
Do you know the thing that drives me mad about Friends? It's the interlude music. Like, so when an episode starts, like,
100%.
and oh my God, it
100%.
makes me want to rip my own teeth out.
I know exactly what you mean. And it's there for such a short time. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's so annoying. It actually, there's like music, not a lot of music will give me that feeling of, I'll just be like, yeah, like whatever you like, that's fine. But there's some music that I hear and I actually get annoyed at whoever put it in the show and think, why the fuck are you into this?
I know.
It's very rare. But yeah, you're right. The Friends music, I'm not even talking about the intro song because I just skip that every time.
That's an abomination. But anyway.
But, I neither like or hate it. But it's that interlude music. That guitar thing. I don't know.
When they try and they do like the reggae beats and stuff like that. Like my missus, when she's like feeding our youngest, she'll stick on like Friends and that. Oh, it's fair enough. Like she's at home and I'm working from home, but I can just hear it like through the walls. And like I'm working in the back, so there are 2 rooms in between, like the living room, and I'm like, there's a kitchen and our dining room, and then there's me, and I can still hear the little jangly.
Yeah, it's just it's in a certain register, which is just it's so annoying to begin with.
But, do you know what? I've actually started sweating. It pisses me off that much.
The thing is, it's because you hear it so often because it's such a bingeable show. You'll just hear it all the time. Yeah. And yeah, it'll be in every scene transition where it shows the outside of the building first. I can hear it in my head now, and every time I hear it, it's so short, but you're right. There's something about it. It's like a little kid just screaming and talking loud in their high-pitched voice for so long. It's not their fault. There's nothing technically wrong with them just making noise and doing what they want. You can't ignore the fact it's annoying as fuck. Like, it's just unbearable sometimes, right? It's like in Friends.
Oh, sorry, I just had to get off my chest. Anyway.
No, I get you.
Friends isn't objectively like terrible. It's not. It's meh.
It's just it's fun to put on and just, I like the characters. I like what they, I like the stuff they get up to. And there's parts that are really, really funny to me. Like, it's just easy humor.
It should just be called, instead of Friends, it should just be called Privilege. But anyway. Nothing encapsulates that more so than there was this one line where I think Chandler says, "Oh, well, I have to go back to my job. I have to go back to my job that I love so much. Who doesn't hate their job?" And then the rest of the 5 of them are like, "Oh no, I love my job. Oh my God, I love my job." Oh. Yeah. And it was like, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Since that moment, I was just like, "Oh yeah, these guys are flipping privileged. Why do I care about them all?" Anyway.
Yeah, they all actually have like the not perfect jobs, but actually,
perfect jobs to their personalities.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And they get like loads of money. Like Joey's a terrible actor. Yeah, he's got loads of money. Like,
Yeah, how does he afford that apartment in Manhattan? Like,
do you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? It's Privilege, the series, is what that is.
Phoebe's a masseuse, right?
I think so, yeah.
She ain't making that kind of...
She ain't making New York, like, apartment kind of bank. So, you know what I mean? Rachel Green comes from money.
She comes from money, and she goes up into like a fashion, a more higher paying role. Yeah. But it's like, okay, but you're still in the same apartment from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Ross, where's the growth?
Yeah, right. What's Ross? He's
paleontologist. Tell me if you know. Anyway, but I think he's a professor, and you do get bucks for that.
Yeah,
so
he's the only believable one for me. Yeah. But apparently that show, well, I found out as well, like last year, like that show is a ripoff of another TV show, a black TV show.
Oh, shock horror.
Yeah, which didn't. They took the idea for it, and then this one went on for like 10 seasons.
So they called this one Friends. What was the black show called? Like, I don't know, Bros. Bros. You know what I mean? Three you know what I mean? They couldn't have like three black ladies and three black guys going, well, what's different this week? Well, we still broke. We still like it would have been right. Unprivileged. This.
Well, the first link I've just clicked on. Yeah, Friends is the ripoff of that's it. Living Single. That's the name of the show.
Did not know that.
And then in brackets it says, and a bunch of other times white people have stolen black ideas.
There we go.
Yeah. So
at least it would have been hip hop, like, do you know what I mean? Like some nice little, good like interlude music,
like the Fresh Prince. Yeah, I never had any issue. Actually, yeah, I think this is what
we are spiraling. I love it.
When you watch Fresh Prince, there's a show called Girlfriends as well that came onto Netflix recently, and me and my partner binged that. It's another black TV show.
Yeah, I think
kind of that time.
It was early 2000s, no?
Early 2000s, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Girlfriends was like towards the end of the 90s, and then most of it early 2000s. Fresh Prince. What else was there? Like My Wife and Kids. That was kind of 2000s.
Yeah.
But yeah, all these shows, I never had any problems with the musical interludes.
Yeah, they weren't great. They were done on a horrible Casio 80s keyboard, but they were all right.
The Fresh Prince one though. Fresh Prince ones though were bangers. Like I just loved listening to when the interlude music came on, it fit the vibe and it was just cool. And I know Quincy Jones was behind it, but still, like, but I think when you then compare it to like Friends, it's like, you know, when people would make those jokes about the difference between black people and white people, it just shows how
this is it. Like, I remember on Twitter, like maybe it was like last year or something, there was some person like trying to canvass that Friends was a better show than Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and I was like, objectively incorrect on all counts of the above. Like, you can enjoy both, definitely. Fresh Prince is far superior in terms of its layers. There were some absolutely amazing examples of writing in that show. I mean, like rattling off when Will gets shot, or when Carlton's called, that was horrible. Or when Carlton has the gun and things like that. Like, it's
when he goes to the Black Society in
my god,
college, and they debate over what like blackness means and stuff like that. Was a really well done,
well done. But so that's the thing, and like, don't get me wrong, like Friends, some of it can be like heartbreaking. I think like
we're not downplaying
the issues there, because like, you know, like motherhood, fertility, I think that's a really sort of brave thing to take on. You know, but it's done with the veneer of, but we got a joke. Like, it's almost like Family Guy. Family Guy will say something like really, really poignant and then immediately undercut it with a joke, like just straight away, you know, Peter Griffin falls over. You know?
I was going to say the same thing, but you said it in a better way, because I didn't know how to explain it. It did feel like it was always the serious theme, or if it's getting somewhere, it gets undercut by a joke, which is cool. Yeah, it's the comedy show, or it's whatever, and it's, you know, they want the comedy relief and stuff. But I think you're right. Fresh Prince is just, I don't know, it's just cooler as well.
It's much. It is. The characters are nice. There's a lot of depth as well. Like Uncle Phil is not just an uncle. He's a
he was
dad
way more than
and a mentor. And I think that it really did a good job of highlighting like the importance of a fatherhood figure, but not only that, like the importance of a husband as well.
Right.
But then also when you had, you know, Aunt Viv, she was an academic and somebody intelligent and like quite formidable. Yes, very, very funny, but she also encapsulated the need for a positive female role in the family life, in society in general. I really do think like Fresh Prince was an excellent show. And there's no 100%. Way, like, you know, I mean, like Friends is funnier, you know, maybe it's funnier in the sense of it was aimed more at adults or whatever, but Fresh Prince was trying to change minds out here, whereas Friends was trying to make like it's just basically like surface level BS for the most part, with some serious themes of, you know, loss, tragedy, that kind of stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, but anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, because Fresh Prince it's so good.
Just doing a skim read of this thing, Living Single. I mean, the person who wrote this article was saying that Living Single was a way better show than Friends. first aired in 1993 and was wildly successful. And then this is what they wrote. Suspiciously, in 1994, Friends aired, and black people everywhere have wondered what the hell ever since. First, it was a very literal copy of Living Single. Second,
goodness.
It was very suspiciously also in New York, though through a very whitewashed version. And David Schwimmer, who played Ross, when asked about the lack of diversity on Friends, because where in New York is that white? That's what he said. I mean, which is, again, something I never really picked up on.
But we'd never be able to know because we ain't really there. So, but anyway.
No, that's true. But it's only when someone shows it to you and you're like, actually, yeah, my perception of New York was different. Like growing up listening to like hip hop.
Yeah.
My perception of hip hop was my perception of New York was way different. And when I went to New York, it mirrored that very well. And whereas if I just grew up seeing my perception of New York through Friends,
you'd think you were in the deep south in like 1822.
Right. Yeah, it would have been very different. And
where's the black? Where are the black people? Oh, they're out in the yard, you know.
Oh man.
Oh my god.
But yeah.
They're still picking cotton. Anyway.
But yeah, so it was based on so people were saying that it's based, even some of the actors and actresses took to Twitter and said to David Schwimmer when because the show was groundbreaking for this and that, and they were like, have you ever heard of Living Single? Like, we did all this shit already. Again, just another example of
it's not David Schwimmer's fault though. He's just an actor. He doesn't know.
Just part of the thing.
Yeah. He genuinely would have come in just like, hey, do you want to be like part of a show? And he's like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I'm a young
I'm trying
actor.
to get my acting career.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And then
that
like
was
he
a
made
big show for him.
But it was huge. And then he did Band of Brothers, where he surprised everybody, where we were like, oh, hang on a minute, this guy can actually really act. But anyway.
Right, yeah.
He's class in that. He's really good.
Okay, that's cool. So back to what were we talking about?
I Am the Highway was the last song.
Right, yeah. But why did we talk about I was watching Friends while I was listening to this album. Anyways, that's the connection.
Okie dokie.
Next song, Exploder. Was not really a fan of this. Found it a bit kind of lifeless.
Right. Wait, listen. Absolute wall-to-wall banger. It is a banger. I'm not having it. And also, though, I do like the lyrics. I do really like the lyrics.
Yeah.
It's about being in prison.
Right.
If you're free, you'll never see the walls. If your head is clear, you'll never free fall. If you're right, you'll never fear the wrong. If your head is high, you'll never fear at all. How life-affirming is that? Anyway, yeah. But also, again, with the whole aggression thing, like when the guitar's off doing its solo, like high-pitched solo, just that fuzz and wah of the bass underneath it is just disgusting. But also, and I don't know if many people know this, but this, like the riff, was used in Rage Against the Machine. Like they did a live song called Testify before Testify ever existed on Battle of Los Angeles. And it was the exact same riff. And they just used it. It was just the same riff all the way through in that. And much like it is in this song. But I just thought I'd point that out. This isn't a new one. They cheated. And I knew it then as well. So you've been new. Yeah, man. But anyway, if you're not, that's fair enough. Like,
yeah, just,
you know what I mean, not everything ain't for everyone.
Yeah, and at this point in the album, I'm kind of like,
when's it gonna end?
Yeah, I'm kind of tuned out. I'm just like, okay, how many songs we got left?
Wait, it's not hip hop.
Shut the fuck up.
These guitars.
Yeah, fuck guitars, man. No, I'm joking. I love guitars, but
yeah, man, for real.
Hip hop for the win. All day, every day. Anyways, Hypnotize. It's kind of interesting. It's cool. It's different. Feels a bit. I don't know if this is the right way to say it. It feels a bit quicker.
Yeah, definitely.
Pace. Yeah. Still, just
One of my least favorite on the album, mate. So you'll have no quarrel here.
Came and went. Cool.
Yeah.
Just as this conversation will. So, sorry, were you going to say something about it?
No. That's it.
Oh, okay.
No, cool, this is one of the songs I listened to it once for this revisit for me, and I was like, meh, I don't care about it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. Bring 'Em Back Alive's got a nice gritty kind of drive to it. Let's say similar criticism to the rest of the album, but it's not really a criticism. It's just more of just not vibing with it. You know, I can see if this is the way I'd say is that someone came up to me and said, "Oh, I love this song," I'd be like, "Okay, cool, I get that." But for me, I'm not gonna say it'd be inauthentic of me to say that I love or like the song because I'm neither here nor there.
I don't love the song.
Okay,
but I love the imagery.
Sure, you can have to break down these lyrics.
The lyrics break it down for you. Like, I was on my way to the center of the sun.
Okay.
When I lost my wings, I fell into a crowd, and they carried me to a hole in the ground. They buried me where no one could see, and no one will be around. I'm a virus. I think he's talking about the fall of man.
Okay.
And I think look, there could be devil imagery and stuff, all of that. Like, I was on my way to the city in the clouds. Then I lost my mind and I had to settle down. I had a dream of an island in the sea where lepers die, where no one survives and no one can hear the cries. It's like heaven and hell imagery right there. It's about his soul, man. It's like Bring 'Em Back Alive. I think he's referencing the rapture. So for those of you who don't know, in Judeo-Christianity, like, there is meant to be a day, an hour, a minute where God and Jesus come back and they basically hit the reset button and judge the living and the dead. That's what Christians believe that is going to happen. It's going to be scary because before that time, I think there's meant to be, I think it's 7 years of like trial and tribulation, or 2 years of trial and tribulation. Like, loads of little things are going to happen. Yeah, it's pretty serious thing. The thing is, most people think that like the Book of Revelations is like it's terrifying and all of that. It is, but if you're a good person, then it's not terrifying because the goodies win. That's basically it. I think what he's referencing here is that he, when he sings like "I am a virus," I think that he's basically looking at his humanity, saying, I'm the problem, and I don't know how to make it better when I'm judged. Essentially, I think that's what he's saying. And Bring 'Em Back Alive is very much life after death, I think. But he's a poet, and he shrouds.
An interesting take.
Yeah, he shrouds it in mystery.
Yeah. How do you live your life believing that at any day, any hour, any minute, your whole shit could just be flipped upside down, and then you're going to be judged for every action leading up to that point? And how do you even keep your own personal tally of what you've been doing and what's even considered good and bad?
So
to even feel comfortable knowing,
it's not. I think that maybe your actions, because even the Egyptians referenced it with like Osiris and his son Horus. Like, I think there's somebody that is the judge and weighs the scales or something like that. Anyway, but I think it's an idea older than time that basically everything that you do is recorded in some way or fashion.
Yeah.
And in human terms, like, how do you live your life like knowing that? Well, this is why Christians, for example, believe in Jesus. They believe that it is in nature of man to sin, and we can't help that because it is our nature. However, the gift of free will was bestowed upon man by God. You can choose the right or the wrong. The choice of intent is truly yours. So you could be, for example, a person. Let's say, for example, a person who lies a lot to get themselves out of trouble. Like, we all lie, we all do that. But however, you're not lying to hurt anybody. You're not, you're just trying to save your bacon every now and again. and if you're sorry and if you repent and you're just like, look, you know what, man, I'll try and do better. I'll try and do better. I'll try and do better, and you pray and stuff. I think I think you're judged on your intent as opposed to your actions. Like, sure. Did you willingly know that you were going to screw somebody over for that job promotion? And did you, why did you follow up on that? Like, that's not cool. That's not right. And how do you live with it? Well, unfortunately, mate, your clock can be punched at any moment. I could be, sitting here and then my heart just says, I'm not going to beat anymore, and that's the beauty of life. Like it's not so much a case of you're walking around with an anvil around your chest, like weighing down the amount of sins. The point of Christians believing in Jesus is that Jesus paid that debt. Like he took on the sins and he said, look, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And then, anything that you do, and like you will sin, but if you're trying not to sin, that's fine. And if you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, like it's all right. Like you will get to heaven. That's my understanding of it anyway. Like it's not so much to do with like the impending doom and all of that stuff. Like it's not to do with that. It's about the actions, the transactions between good and evil that you do every single day. And I think that there are a hell of a lot of people in the world who say don't believe in Christianity. And this is just Christianity that I'm talking about. It's something I am familiar with. But like Islam is different. I'm not sure on all of the beliefs there, but I'm sure that maybe the crux of it is, love your neighbor, try and do well for your, your peers, try and do well for your family. And like, ultimately your good intentions, I suppose there's that phrase, isn't it? Like, all good intentions pave the way to hell or something like that. But anyway, I don't know. Really? But I think that really, it's to do with, it's doing good in your life. Basically, that's how people try and do that. Sure. And, it is a pretty heavy concept that I'm now slowly sort of losing steam on. But
yeah, right, yeah, because I've always found it interesting, this idea of human beings being sinful. And that's part of their nature, because it makes sense depending on the different interpretation of sin. So if we're talking about it as a action-based thing, or if we talk about sin as being a disconnect from God, which every human being has, as by virtue of being a human being. So therefore, you are technically, when someone says you're living in sin. So there's a guy called Paul Tillich who I learned about at uni, who who was a Christian but didn't believe in the literal interpretation of that idea of sin from the Bible. He saw it more as when someone says living in sin or being sinful, it's not about a proactive action of being sinful and doing bad things. It's just in our nature as human beings to live in sin, because living in sin is a disconnection from God. It's just a state of being, right? And that's why you have to then put your faith in something else, right? You have to I can't remember exactly what it was, but I had to write about, basically I did like this essay on the difference between Nietzsche's interpretation of sin and Paul Tillich's interpretation of sin, and how they may either link up or not. And for someone like Paul Tillich, it's like if you have zero connection to God, so if you are a human being, that's already your first disconnect from God. But then you don't believe in anything outside of yourself, then you can't. Then he believes that you're even further in sin. Not just because you don't believe in God, as in like, oh, you should just believe in God. It's not a moral thing. It's more of if you just don't believe in something outside of yourself, then you're grounding yourself in something that will eventually, you're putting your faith in something that will eventually end and not be there for you, aka your life, right? And other things around you, which are all finite, all fallible, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not like a moral thing, like, oh my God, he or she doesn't believe in God. They're sinners. It's just varying degrees on the spectrum of living in sin, because by virtue of being a human being, you are already disconnected from God. It's the whole point. right? When you're a human being. I mean, it's kind of like, you know,
when you say disconnected, do you mean as in like your soul is on earth, whereas God is not? Or do you mean that
so you have this, living a human life is there's no kind of tangible way of saying, yes, there is definitely a God, and
sure,
they're with me, they're looking out for me and whatever, or the nature of God, you have no real understanding of it. There's like a block by being human. There is a disconnect, there's a barrier, within your physical body. Once you leave your the idea would be that if all this was true, you once you shed your physical body, you're back with the source, and therefore you are back connected with the source of everything. So what that there's a God, because you'll be there with it, regardless of whether you believed or not. So the idea is that when you're living your life on earth, as soon as you kind of become human, that's the first barrier, right? That's your first disconnect from the source. And the whole point is that, well, I guess the interpretation is that, well, if you're kicked out the garden, effectively, so when you become a human being, so the Adam and Eve story is more symbolic than it is literal, that you're kicked out the garden when you opt to become a human being, and you can't, if you're connected to the source, you don't really learn or grow as an individual, because everything is there for you. There is no hardship, there's no struggle, which then brings in the Nietzsche thing where he talks about suffering and struggling leading to like elevation and growth and bettering yourself. You have to go through that suffering to get better.
Agreed.
And, you get it when you go through bad things in life, and then you learn how to maneuver those bad things, and then those bad things lessen because you're equipped with the tools of how to get through it each time. But you had to go through the bad experience in order to know that. That's that reinterpretation of this idea of like living in sin and stuff, as opposed to it being based on actions. So, being a sinner because of your actions. It's like, well, everyone's a sinner because you're a human being,
but that's
there was baseline, right?
Yeah, there was only one, in the Bible, there was only one perfect dude. And
it was Jesus, because he had a connection still.
A direct line. Absolutely. He had a direct line.
He couldn't have been, right? That's the whole point. So this interpretation is less literal.
Well, this is the thing about Jesus, though, like, because there's, the Bible will chronicle his life from birth till 12 years old, and then he'll pop back up at like 32, 33.
What was he doing during that time?
No, but exactly. But I think, so I spoke to a Caribbean scholar like years and years and years ago, and he said,
sowing his wild oats.
Well, he said that there were, and I can't remember, he listed off like a bunch of like ancient texts that he was aware of that chronicled a guy that just came to sit with a different tribe, for example, sit with them, learn about them, and then he just wander off. Right. And it was like, and he was like, it is my belief that was Jesus, like wandering around. And he rattled, like, I was quite young. I think I was about 18. And he rattled off about 5 or 6 different texts that I can't remember. But he was like, yeah, I think that he walked around actually and took a little wander around Earth. It's like, oh, that's a cool idea, But yeah, I mean, or he could have been lying with the whores. I don't want to, I mean, we don't know, but what we do know is like, unfortunately, like it is within everybody's nature to, sin. It's around us. I mean, old school Bible people will say, looking at lewd images of women is a sin. Like if you're in a like marriage or a relationship or whatever, it's a sin because you're sort of, you're basically gawking at somebody that's not yours.
Yeah,
and you shouldn't do that. And then you're like, well, all I did was go on Twitter. All I did was like go on the search feed on Instagram. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there's just TNA up in my face. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's just a case of, it's a case of being confident with your own ability to discern right from wrong, and also knowing your actions. So if you do something that's, say, good, fine. But like also when you do something that's bad, you know it's bad in your heart of hearts. And if you still do it, then you got to reflect on it and just be like, right, I need to actually cut this out of my life. Like, I think that's the, well, it's something that I think anyway, but
I think it's like that whole connecting to your higher self thing, because it's you know, you have to learn how to do that by going through and doing the bad things and realizing that you shouldn't be doing the bad things, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, because these other interpretations of that are more interesting to me, because there's always been the literal interpretation of, you know, accepting Jesus as your savior, so that no matter what, or when you get christened, it's like, so it's no matter what, you know, you will go to heaven and not hell. It doesn't really make sense.
I don't think it works like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I think
but
that
some
you
people
could
take a very literal interpretation of it, and
that's comfort.
Yeah.
I think that it's more to do with, like, so for me, I think the journey is more so, like, I grew up as a Roman Catholic, like, you know, went to, you know, school, secondary school, and all of that. And then I left, and then afterwards I was like, yeah, I think I've got a good grasp on it. I'm a pretty decent human being. I'll be all right, like, in the end, kind of thing. And, you know, really left it.
Sure.
And it's something that I wasn't really, I was sort of confident. I'd always had this belief in God because, you know, I was told to. Sure. But it wasn't until I was getting older, like when I was like 18, when I was, you know, getting bored of church and things like that. And I discovered like boobs and booze and university, man. Like, come on now. And it was easy to get sort of like caught up in the world and stuff like that. But as I've gotten older and I've seen certain things and whatever, I feel myself going back towards it, because it offers, it's not so much that it offers comfort, but a lot of stuff that, like, has been sort of, say, preached in mass or whatever, like, I find coming true in, like, the modern world and stuff. And also when we're going through, like, say for example, like Mac Miller's album last week, and the amount of imagery and stuff I pulled from that, it's just, you know, things like that further solidify my sort of, like, where I stand on the faith issue. So on the faith subject, because it's not an issue.
But that's an important word that you used, of faith, because a lot of people, like, I think Paul Tillich and like Kierkegaard, people like that, will say that you have to kind of suspend reason and logic when it comes to things outside of the material universe. Because, I mean, how else can you, you know, people can talk about, well, there's no proof of this or this and that, blah, 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 but it's not, faith, and, you know, faith doesn't work in that way. It's, and some human beings are actually, this is another thing I didn't realize, but some people are born more prone to religious belief than others are, or spiritual belief, or something like that. In the same way that some are more prone to being ambitious, some are more prone to being lazy. Now, it doesn't mean that they're born like that and therefore they will be like that for the rest of their lives. Correct, it just means that to stop being lazy, they have to fight a bit more of an uphill battle to be, you know, if you're prone to ambition because of a certain combination of genes that you just have an easier time thinking in that way. Doesn't mean that doesn't mean that you're any better or worse than anyone else. And apparently it's the same thing for religious and spiritual belief. There's no like spiritual or religious gene, I don't think. I think it's a combination that create a certain type of personality for you, or give you that basis for it.
Sorry to cut across, man. Like, I think that, like, faith and stuff, like, especially in my experience, faith is an experience. So what I mean by that is, it's like explaining the color blue to a person who's been blind their whole life. You kind of can't, right? It's very much a sense of you got to have it's almost like the eureka moment, you know. It's just a moment where I think it's a moment where you say to yourself, the only answer to this is God. So that's what I think having faith, it's having your eyes open to certain things that happen. I don't know, you had a thought about somebody and I don't know, for some reason you haven't thought about this person in a few years. You can still remember their phone number. For some reason you bell them up I'm not saying this happened to me. This happened to somebody that I watched a video on actually yesterday, and he said,
Right.
"Yeah, I called him up, and then they said that they were having a really hard time, and so I chatted with them, reconnected, and now we're good mates." It's and
Right.
he was saying, I'm not a religious person, but like I can only think that there was something like, was that God? Is that Jesus? Like, what is that? Do I need to go to mass? And it was very much this kind of experience that happened. Why did I remember that thing? Why did that happen? And I'm not saying that it's exclusively has to be that, but it could just be. When it happened to me, I was in the Caribbean, and I saw probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I could not believe my eyes and the fact that I was there. It's so mundane to other people, but like to me, so basically, like I was on a boat after a really long journey. I was going to Carriacou from Grenada on this boat, and on my right hand side was the sunset, and it was gorgeous, and there were birds in the air, and it was like fantastic. On my right hand side was Grenada with storm clouds over it, but when I looked, the clouds in this perfect little gap just showed me the moon and the stars, and then out from like the hills of Grenada was like three rainbows, like over the hills and leading into the sea. And I was like, I have never seen anything like that. And I was just there, and I had this 360, like I didn't take any pictures or whatever. It is my experience, my own. I felt like I was the only person on that boat that saw that. Sure. And that was when I was like, the only answer. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the thing that I've always had that in my life throughout.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, I'm in. You've asked me to be in. Like, I'm in. But have I sinned? Have I done things wrong? Do I continue to do things wrong? Do I act in rage and stuff like that? Yeah, absolutely I do. Like, that's the thing, dude. And do I think that there will come a time of great tribulation for all people on this earth and all of that? I think we're living in the beginnings of it.
I thought you were going to say that. Yeah,
bro, listen, I know people are saying that, vaccines and all of that stuff, we haven't touched that subject on this podcast. I don't think we should, but what I will say is that some people will see that as one thing negative, and others will not bat an eyelid. But I do think that there are signs in this day and age where I'm like, actually, maybe the Bible was right in quite a lot of things, because especially doing this podcast and like listening to some of the artists that we've listened to and the references that they make. And this isn't just some that we've done like on the podcast, but this is in the wider society, and we've let them slide. I'm like, maybe there is really something to all of it, And I think that we're being shown the evidence slowly but surely. But anyway,
sure, yeah. I mean, that point you made about the experience was, I think, important. And a lot of people forget that. A lot of people like to do this reductionist, materialist thing, which is just, if I can see it with my sense, if I can feel it. See, hear it, feel it, whatever my senses pick it up, and if science shows it to me, then that is what it is. Not knowing that the scientific method is based on breaking down old beliefs and forming new ones, but observation and re-observation and whatever else. It's not just it's science says it's fact and it's stuck in place. This is what based on the evidence. This is what we think is how it's working, and we've got a pretty good hold on what it is because we've thoroughly investigated it. Calm,
definitely,
cool. I trust you, because why would I not? You've put in the work and you've done that, right? And experiments in science isn't just stuff being poured into. Like when I was a kid, it was just like imagining like guys in labs and just pouring stuff into beakers and tubes and measuring it and looking into microscopes, and it's like, how do you science is like such a broad range of stuff, but there are people who wouldn't classify themselves as religious, but they would say things like, well, what stops me from being fully, let's say, atheistic is that I don't know, I've taken psychedelics and something has just kind of happened. It's expanded my mind and something's just happened. Or I come back thinking there's and even some scientists who say things like, well, the interesting thing about the world or the universe is that, I remember seeing this written somewhere, I can't remember where, was that it feels more like, less like it's designed for a purpose, or not purpose, but not just that it was designed, but more that it feels more, no, sorry, this is what it is. It feels more beautiful than it does functional, if that makes sense. So some people would try and break everything down to, well, this is just the way it functions. This is what your neurons are doing. And then this is what love is because of these things firing in your brain. It's like, okay, that's cool. But why do you always sound like you're trying to undermine the feeling or experience of these things?
Yeah.
You know, it sounds very edgy and kind of, fake wokey, like, kind of on Reddit.
I know
like Reddit, the Reddit atheists, as we would call them at uni, right? Because we just had no time for these people. It was just very, break down someone else's belief. I am 10 times smarter than you because
that's it.
I see it for what it really is. Like, shut the fuck up, man. But so some people say that actually the observable universe feels more beautiful than it does functional, and you can't sometimes explain why. Like, why is it? It's almost like it's just been created because it's just a expression of creativeness. Not that there's any function to it. It's just,
well, what is the function of it apart from to randomly expand and like the whole concept of the observable universe? I think I brought it up in an earlier episode, but I'll never forget. Like, I was listening to this. I always listen to narrators on like YouTube and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
And there was one. It was about this one story where it was basically like Stargate the movie. Like they somehow got a cosmic radio and they were talking to somebody, and basically the being on the other end of the line basically says, "Oh, you're not going to be able to see us because you're 17 observable universes away from us." And I was like, I was like,
what?
Oh my god! Could you imagine? Could you and it was just, it's some brilliant author that said that. I'm like, that just hurts my head thinking about it.
Yeah, I can't even it just makes me want to just shut down and just sit down and just relax a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like there's so much out there that we don't know. I mean, there's even in the solar system, a lot of conspiracy theories are talking about the face of Mars, the pyramids of Mars, the pyramids on the moon, the pyramids in this and that. And you're like, bloody hell, guys.
Fucking hell, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe humans were a spacefaring race that crash landed on Earth. Who knows? But we're probably never going to find out the answer to that. So just try and live a good life. Like just be glad
you're here.
Worry about what you can control and what you can see. And
that's a very good philosophy to uphold.
Yeah, man. Worry about like what you can directly influence, and if you can influence it for the better, that's great. If you can find a bit of faith as well, that's also great. I find it like quite a, regardless of whether you're open to it or closed to it or whatever, I do believe that you do have a sense of it's humbling basically to think that there is something bigger than you are, much bigger than you are. That is,
and even if that's just even if that's not God. For some people, even if it's just looking out on a starry night and being like, bro, I'm in this massive universe. There's all these like stars and planets out there just here. That can be your form of thinking of something bigger than yourself, to humble yourself and kind of put things in perspective.
Definitely.
It doesn't always have to be anything big or supernatural. But that 17 dimensions thing is fucking crazy because I've heard some people who theorize that when we see, when people report things like ghosts or say that they got or when, what's those people called? Not psychics, mediums, yeah, who connect you to your loved ones after they've died or whatever, right? Some people say that there's a whole study of it because my family, like my extended family, are really they don't talk about it as much anymore, but they were really deep on this sort of stuff. Like they would go and see mediums or whatever. This was never part of my life at all.
Yeah.
But they would go and see mediums. And I heard a recording of one of my cousins doing a medium reading.
Sure.
And unfortunately, it felt, I don't think she realized it, but she was talking for a lot of it. So I think she was giving a lot of information.
Exactly.
Without realizing it.
Yeah.
But then recently, some other ones who I wouldn't expect would be like, they've like changed perspectives on things. So now they're all very much like, they would just say it very normally. They'll say, my auntie passed away recently, and we'll talk about that and be like, sorry to hear that, whatever. And it's like, it's fine. She's still helping me to this day.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are into like, spirit guides and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, you really fully, like, you just said that. It's not just oh, that's nice to hear. It's very just off the cuff. Like, yeah, it's a given. Like, yeah, I've felt things and I've heard things and seen things, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So I just started to look it up, and I found that there are people who actually study this stuff. Yeah. So they've like hooked up mediums to see what that monitor their brain activity and things like that. It's just so interesting. And then there's a whole institute which does this really hard approach when it comes to studying mediums, where they have a really, really strict kind of process to weed out people who do like cold readings and stuff like that. And they actually have like a solid list of people where they actually can't figure out how they know the stuff they know. And it's like, right, okay, we need to go a bit deeper into that, because that's kind of fucked up.
There are some people with really good antennas, mate, and there are some
the
that
antennas
aren't.
are what for what though? Like, it's
weird
mate. To think about antennas, like what, when we talk about the quantum stuff a couple episodes, but I can't remember which album we were discussing, but how the
Shea Butter Baby,
was it that? Seems like a weird album we would talk about that stuff.
I think because we were talking about her apartment, and I said, what if through some quantum entanglement,
entanglement,
she
that's
was
the word,
telling us she was visualizing like her apartment, and we were picking up on the fact that it was high ceilings and white and light and all that. Yeah,
yeah. I remember, because then I actually saw it on her story, like a couple
did you?
Years later, and I was like, that looks like what I imagined.
Yeah, there you go.
And so that thing of that could explain how when you think of someone and then they message you and they're like, I was just thinking about this. It's see, when we talk about spiritual, people think about wishy-washy stuff. They think about like airy-fairy things. But imagine that there's a way that you could explain it through science. It would be spiritual. It would be spiritual stuff or in that realm, but it would just be explainable. Now, this is something that just, I think people need to be open to the idea of, because it's like so many things in the past have been, explained by this, by that. And then we've discovered, actually, no, it's because of this. It's
exactly.
Because of this. Because this works, because that works. Now, when people have certain experiences, I don't think we should just dismiss them outright. Agreed. I think we should look into them and try and understand what's going on. So when someone says, I can read, I'm getting this feeling, someone's trying to communicate to me, and they say that they're your mom and that they passed away on this date and they did this and they did that, and they're just saying this to me, and everything seems to be correct, it could be a fluke. But you'd need to study it to know that, instead of going in just saying,
it's bullshit. Yeah.
Don't just go in saying it's bullshit. Go in and study it.
See, the thing that terrifies me, bro, things that terrifies me about that is, you might be communicating with a spirit that's relaying information. How do you know it's really them?
Oh yeah, then we can get into all that shit.
Because you just don't know, because people always talk about shadow people and all of that kind of stuff. Like while there is, spirits that might wander and stuff, there's also the bad stuff too. Like, how do you not know that they don't know that, and they're just spreading some crap like your way, And that's the thing. Like, I think that while I'm not really big into like mediums and stuff like that, I've had experiences where, like, I've had a myriad of nutty experiences, but I wouldn't ever rule it out, like that being able to communicate and pierce the veil or not relay information. Yeah, but to be able to relay information, to be the conduit between the spiritual and the physical. I do believe that is true. Do you know what, mate? That kind of stuff scares the crap out of me. I'd never touched it, and I wouldn't.
It feels too weird, right?
It feels, do you know what it is? It's almost like me going into, like when I was a kid, me going into my mum's purse and taking £1. Just,
because she knew that £1 would be missing.
Couldn't do it.
Nah.
I remember one time my mum gave me a £5. I spent £4.50 of it down the shops, and I basically pocketed the 50p. She ain't going to want to know where that is. Oh boy. The way she looked at me, the way she was just like, you're stealing from me. I was like, no, mum, it's 50p. She said, no, but it's not your 50p. Oh my
Right.
God.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever had your heart like fall out of your ass before? Jeez, I hadn't until that moment.
Every time my
So,
mom steps into the room. I'm not joking.
oh boy. But yeah, man, like I think that this is a conversation literally we could do an entire series on this
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
so big.
Yeah.
And it's
I just find it really interesting.
yeah, same.
I've grown up with it, but not. I've grown up with this good perspective, as in just by chance of growing up, but not being deep in it. So just seeing it from afar. So having this kind of interest because, you know, my family and my cousins would always talk about these things. They just love talking about, oh, this place was haunted. And yeah, someone said this thing to me and this story to me. And yeah, I went to see a medium or a psychic or whatever. And, oh, you know, they say this about this and about that. And I'm like, who says these things? You know, just, you know, I have like this kind of healthy distance from it, but enough that I don't, you know, maybe when I was younger, I would have just dismissed it as like, oh, you lot are fucking weirdos, man. But now it's like,
no, there's something to it.
How can I be so arrogant to just dismiss something like that straight off the bat? And I realized that a lot of the time, the dismissal comes from what we are kind of fed or influenced by. So,
correct.
You know, we think of science or rationality or whatever and being this very particular way, and anything outside of it is pseudo or just bullshit, or it's just whatever, right? And it's like, bruv, you have to understand people have experiences that they really truly believe and hold on to. And again, I'm not saying that means that they're true. I'm just saying this is the whole point of going in with an open mind. I can imagine some of my friends who think that they're open-minded, but if you talk on a certain subject about something, you know, they would look at you funny.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
I reckon it would come. It's why, and unfortunately, so when my aunties or my cousins or whatever talk about some of this stuff, in my head, even to this day, sometimes it can still be a bit easy to just dismiss it.
Mm-hmm.
If my mom came to me and started talking about this stuff, which she has done sometimes, every now and then, the way she talks about it is very much more measured.
Yeah.
At least to me, because that's just her personality. She doesn't tend to exaggerate as much as they do, because they won't just exaggerate about this stuff. They exaggerate about everything.
Fair enough. So they got previous.
So yeah. So it's like, oh, you could be exaggerating about this. So when my mom comes to me and says, yeah, you know, they tried to get me to do this phone call and talk to this person or whatever, and I just went along with it because whatever. But then, you know, they seem to know about this, they seem to know about that, and you know, it could be, you know, she'll throw in saying, oh, it could be a coincidence. It could be that everyone is like that. And or maybe they did it. They asked this question to 5 other people before me, and I was the first one who happened to actually say yes. Like, yeah, that's me, you know.
Yeah.
That could be the case as well. But I'm more inclined to take on what she said and be like, you know what? Okay, that's interesting.
It's your Marge.
But also she's not an exaggerating person. She's very kind of measured in her approach, and she's a bit of a no bullshit attitude. But in general, I think that people need to, when they really say that they're open-minded, actually be open-minded. So when someone comes to you with these experiences, don't be like me back in the days where I'd be like, you didn't see a ghost, bro. Yeah, you're fucking, you're just bullshitting, bro.
Yeah.
Be it more like, okay, well, what actually happened? You know, ask the question, well, what did you do? What actually happened? And you know, sometimes you might come across, oh, maybe actually it was just this, you know, maybe you had a slight hallucination because it was an old house and therefore all the moss and the mold and stuff was in there, and you saw pictures of people who used to live there, and because that stuff's circulating through the air, you may have mildly hallucinated seeing an old inhabitant of the house because you've seen a picture of them, right? And you've put that together in your head, and therefore that's what you've hallucinated. That is a theory that some people have for why people seem to think that old Victorian houses and stuff are haunted, because of the way the houses are built. They don't have very good air circulation. There's mold and moss and stuff in the house, and you see these paintings or pictures of people who used to live there. It's all a combination. But for all we know, it could be that there was an actual ghost there that just doesn't want to leave the house, you know?
Yeah.
Because that dimensions thing, some people theorize that the afterlife is not just this heaven or hell type place. It's moving to a different dimension.
Plane of existence.
Yeah. That's why some people can see you and some people can't. And some people stay in their houses because they're still attached to their life there and they don't want to leave. And but no one can see them when they walk into the house. But they feel the door close, or they feel the cold rush through them, or whatever. Again, all theories, or whatever. Very interesting though. Like,
again, it's experience though, isn't it?
But it's experience based on, coming back to what I said, we can't just dismiss people's values and experiences. That's why you can't just go up to creationists and say to them, look, bruv, this is evolution and this is this and this is that. Because to them, if they've grown up, as that being their main form of attachment to their family, to their community, bringing them comfort in their life, they're just going to dismiss what you're saying and say, well, fuck you.
Well, or to be honest, like what I find, it's why like religious beliefs are called faith. You don't know.
Right, exactly.
The clues in the title, like that, we're not gonna know. Does the Bible reference dinosaurs? No, but they existed.
Right.
Yeah, but the people at the time wouldn't have known that, or they might have known it as like, oh well, there was a great big beast and there's its skeleton, but it's not worthy of mention because they're all over the place. Like, do you know what I mean?
Why would anyone need to know this? Like,
exactly,
that might have been what they thought. Yeah.
It's just we don't know, and that's again the most humbling thing about.
Just need more open-mindedness, man.
That's exactly it, basically. But
don't dismiss this sort of stuff just because you've been told that it's automatically bullshit. You've just been told that.
Well, it doesn't fit your worldview or narrative. Like to find out that there's an other, it doesn't really. It's quite scary to have your feelings or thoughts subverted in any type of way. It's why people, might have a hard time with change.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of white people felt like that last year when that became the big topic of discussion. I'm sure a lot of men have felt that way with some of the recent discussions we've been having, because in their worldview has been completely different to other people's worldviews. You see what I mean? Like, even on that level.
It's a can of worms, mate.
Yeah, and we're not going to go into that all now, but...
Yeah, I know.
Even people on Earth are living in different fucking dimensions from each other, So... just in our literal living experience. But people think that everyone just lives the same experience as they do. Once you realize that's not the case, it'll be bad at the beginning, but you'll be the better for it. Yeah,
I always make this. Like I was explaining, I can't remember. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I just said, "Look, you like guitar music. How come? Like the guitar has the same amount of strings for the most part. You can get 7 or 8 and 12 string guitars. Yeah, I know that. But for the most part, they're the same notes. They're the same amount of strings. Why is it that so many people can play the guitar so uniquely and so differently? What is it about that? And the most common denominator is the actual person's difference to that instrument, to each other. And that's the beauty of life, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a unique take. Why is it that hip hop is such a, like for us, why is it such a captivating genre?
Mm-hmm.
There are only a finite amount of words in the dictionary. There are only a finite amount of words to rhyme or ways to rhyme. There are only a finite amount of notes and beats and stuff to be made
within a song.
Exactly. But why is it that we vibe with certain rappers who are so different? It's because of their individuality that we vibe to it. And therefore, we do live in there are so many people and there are so many unique ways of looking at life. Like the way that you look at life is different to the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about bridging the gap, which is all about this podcast, because that's why I've given you rock albums. You know what I mean? Let's get back to it, because
speaking of rock albums, since from your nice little segue back to the whole thesis of the podcast, which one are we on? Light My Way. At this point in the album,
it's a banger. Shut up.
Everything's dragging for me now.
It's a banger. Shut up.
At this point in the album, everything is dragging.
Fair enough.
Getaway Car though, that's kind of cool. I don't know if that's that's interesting, because for me it could be just because it's different from the other songs, and the guitar is kind of nice. The little hoo-hoo parts that he does, it's cool. It's different from what I've heard the rest of the album. Caught my ear. the concept from what I the very loose concept from what I got was kind of cool. And then the last remaining light.
Mm-hmm.
I was not into that. I think I was just very happy the album was over at this point.
So the thing is, I found that this song, I always ignored it as well. I always ignored the last two songs.
Okay.
And I found
should have ended at Light My Way.
Yeah, I love that song. I think it's powerful.
Then that could have been a good 12 songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the style in the way that it's played, like it's they go on to play like this in their like later albums called Revelations. Like there's basically an album wall to wall of songs like this.
Okay.
And so you wouldn't have enjoyed that. But yeah, I mean, like it's just by this point, I'm dragged. Like I'm just like, now I'm kind of done with the project. Like,
yeah,
ready for it. Exactly. But I do love the way he sings, like the last remaining light. The way that he sings that note, it's just rock, isn't it?
Yeah, it's yeah. Same with you. Like for me, Getaway Car could have been like a bonus track. And yeah, the last song just kind of was like, okay, it's not like the big closer that I thought it would be. It just kind of came and went, and then it just stopped playing, and I was like, oh, okay, the album's done. Sick. Cool. And then that was that. Yeah, so rating. What do you think I'm going to give it?
I reckon you'll give it either a 5.5 or a 5.
Oh.
I don't think it's going to rate that highly, to be honest. Because like if you'd have rated it, if you'd have engaged with it a bit more, if you were saying, "Oh, Dave, like I picked out this lyric, that lyric, whatever," I'd have been like, "Yeah, maybe 6.5."
Yeah, because then I would have given it room to to grow, right?
Yeah,
as well.
You'd have actually done your job as a reviewer. But anyway,
I tried to do my job, and you did not make this an easy job for me.
Sorry, bro.
Not that I need easy jobs, but
listen, you gave me 2 albums of Drake, so like forever, I will hate your guts.
No, that's fine. I accepted it because I actually, when I look back, I did think, "Whoa, wow, shit, yeah, I did actually give you 2 albums of Drake's." Yeah. I keep forgetting I gave you the other one.
Forgetting I listened to it because it was so shite. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
I gave this a 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. Ladies and gentlemen, KaeDee knows nothing like Jon Snow. But it's fair enough. Like you either vibe with it or you don't. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, man.
You never know. I could come back and we can
shut up.
This and
shut up. Yeah, right. Shut up. You'll go like, oh, maybe I'll give it a 4.25 or something on the rerun.
Yeah, it got a little bit better because I actually liked the whole song. Top 5 was quite hard to pick, but
you don't need to pick a top 5. Oh, really? Go on.
I did actually put some together. So Cochise,
good man.
Set It Off.
Yeah, good man.
Shadow on the Sun.
Top man.
I Am the Highway. And then Getaway Car. So yeah, very kind of.
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I gave him the
solid top 5.
That is definitely not a solid top 5. Man, oh man! Like, come on.
That's not.
It is not solid at all.
I think like song by song, it's more like, oh, the chorus from this one, yeah,
sure.
This part from this one, you know what I mean? Did I even give a top 5 for Deftones?
I don't think you did.
Or did I just? Yeah, I think I was one of the few. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I know. Skindred, actually, I just couldn't do it.
Oh yeah,
I wanted to like that album so bad.
So did I. I wanted you to like it, but it just hasn't aged very well, like at all. It kind of had to be there. Yeah, it's because I've got the benefit of hindsight. Because at the time I was like, "This is unreal," but I only picked out a few songs from the album because I remember feeling that the album dragged. But like, upon listening to it, however long ago we did listen to it, I was like, I ain't vibing it with it, the same way that I used to. But I'm sure I said that to you in the podcast.
Yeah, I think you did actually. Yeah, that rings a bell. Thing is, when I listen to some of these albums you give me, sometimes I think, oh man, I wish I'd kind of just come across these back in the day, or even just when I was before uni. So when I was like really, I think I told you, like, I went to see my uncle in America, and that was like a really good trip of mine. And he gave me all this music and burnt it onto a CD. Like, I had like a stack of CDs that he gave me, and I was just going through his iTunes, just burning these albums, and couldn't wait to get home and put them on my iTunes to listen through them. I didn't get to listen through all of them, but the ones that I did kind of stuck with me. Whereas now I think I'm at that point in my, I don't know if it's like age or whatever, but I'm sometimes now I listen to a bit less music, if that makes sense. Like, I care less about staying really up to date on everything.
Agreed.
Which weirdly keeps me more up to date, if anything, because I'm not trying. I just now, if a song comes on, I listen to it. Or if I hear an artist, I might just go watch their YouTube video. Whereas back in the day, I would have been like adding their whole album to a listen later list and stuff like that. And it just had this ever growing list. Now it's just, I just listen to what I know I like. And there's a few albums that come out where I'm like, yeah, okay, so when Kendrick drops his album, it's like, yeah, I'm going to go listen to that when someone else does. And I go through more phases, like really listening to music and then just easing off and then coming back in and really listening heavy. And then, so I've been like on a Griselda kick. I think, do you know what also did not help is that I was trying to listen to this album while I was on a really heavy West Side Gun kick. Or just Griselda, but
got to cleanse the palate.
West Side Gun. Yeah, I didn't have the time.
Got to cleanse the palate.
All I wanted to hear was just some raw beats and some ayo and
boom, 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 boom.
Do. All I wanted to hear was that shit.
His latest, West Side Gun's latest album, I even tweeted about it. Loved it. It was such a different vibe.
Yeah.
Fantastic album. It was. Anyway, do you know what? We might have to review that at some point because I think that is top draw.
Yeah,
it blows up some of the earlier criticisms that I had of like the Griselda crew in general. So
yeah, I can see that actually thinking about it.
Yeah, it blows it up out of the water.
But yeah, okay, so
cool.
My album for you next week is, and I hope you enjoy it, or I hope you get something from it. I actually don't even know. I haven't listened to this album in a long time. Maybe a handful of the songs, but I think it's a good album from this particular artist. So this is going to be Rather You Than Me by Ricky Ross, the Boss. He's released tons of albums, and tons of bangers, but this one was a different one that caught my attention. So I'm interested to hear how you vibe with it, and I'm interested to hear how you come back, like with your feedback, and if it will align with certain things that I feel about the album. I have a feeling you might, but we never know with these things. So yeah, Ricky Ross. That's next week.
Cool. I've never listened to Rick Ross to his album or anything like that. So
you've heard him before, though, as in like
I had
him on songs and stuff. Yeah, he's a big feature artist as well.
Yeah, he's decent. Okay, cool. I've only heard him on features, but yeah, man, I can't wait. Right, so this is my time to shine. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, we tangented hard on this album. I thought we'd be done in an hour.
Same.
You know, if you're still with us, all the blessings to you. We will be back next week with another episode. I think we are cracking doing the weekly shows again, which is amazing. Yeah, like I've got nothing else really to say apart from we'll catch you next time.
Yep.
Peace.
Peace.
We missed that.
Oh.